Each place on Earth changes in time. Nature and civilization leave an imprint of their existence. People give places shape and form. Their life stories imprint a soul onto them. With that, places and buildings come alive and tell us stories long forgotten. Although far apart, different places, different stones, different bricks can tell different parts of the very same story. Each brick from the Portchester Gate Wall and each stone from the Mauthausen Quarry carry a human fate, pain, as well as hope. Standing silently in a row, they pass on these memories. So we, the people of today, remember the torment of the people of yesterday and refrain from inflicting it upon the children of tomorrow. One of the tributes of the story of the Czechoslovak foreign resistance members is the copy of the Portchester Gate Wall, placed in the memorial of national oppression and resistance in Panenské Březany.
Jan Kaplan objevil v domě na Portchester Gate v Londýně historickou zeď, před kterou se fotili českoslovenští parašutisté v období druhé světové války. Při našem setkání v roce 2014 pan Kaplan přišel s nápadem přenést otisk zdi do nově vznikajícího památníku v Panenských Břežanech.
My husband Jan Kaplan and I, we made a film in 1992, film called SS3, The Assassination of Reinhard Heydrich. It was, for the first time, the film praised the bravery of Czech parachutists and of Czech heroes. We have learned for the first time that the Czechoslovaks had friends here in England who helped them with the expertise, with the technical know-how, and trained them in England for the resistance actions, type of actions in the protectorate.
Following their transfer from France, Czechoslovak soldiers were gathered in the Chamley Castle grounds near Chester. June 21st, 1940 marked the day the Czechoslovak exile government in Great Britain was formed. Thanks to the success of Czech diplomatic efforts led by Edvard Beneš, more volunteers were enlisting. The first Czechoslovak mixed brigade was formed on August 12, 1940. After the necessary reorganization and division of different groups into other military camps, soldiers loyal to the Beneš government moved to Leamington a few months later, where more volunteers joined them. By December 31st, 1940, their numbers totaled 3,301. In June 1941, the brigade was renamed to the Czechoslovak Independent Armored Brigade.
This was the SOE building during the Second World War, and Colonel František Moravec, head of Czechoslovak intelligence, had two offices here.
Portchester Gate, a building on Bayswater Road in London, was chosen as the headquarters of the Czechoslovak Foreign Resistance Movement's intelligence unit, under the command of Colonel František Moravec. Borders and freedom are never up for debate. They must be defended, always and by all means. His uncompromising command style was not favored by the domestic resistance. They feared a strong action from the outside into the local conditions and the subsequent retaliation of the occupants. Back home, there seems to be an idea that another October 28th will just drop into our lap. Following losses in the domestic resistance caused by Reinhard Heydrich's appointment, Colonel Moravec managed to push through a program of military actions carried from abroad, which were to employ paratroopers airdropped into the protectorate. They were to be mainly couriers of weaponry and instructors of resistance fighters. The Porchester Gate building became the place where the final decision and concrete plans for Heydrich's assassination. This operation was to return respect back to Czechoslovaks in the eyes of the Allies.
Zachoval se dobový dokument z 3. října 1941, kdy za přítomnosti dalších zpravodajských důstojníků plukovník generálního štábu František Moravec přijal velitele skupiny Anthropoid rotmistra Josefa Gabčíka.
Present at the meeting with Warrant Officer Gabčík was also Staff Sergeant Svoboda. Both were informed about a task which placed on them high physical, tactical, as well as moral demands. However, during the following training, Svoboda was injured. Upon Gabčík's request, Warrant Officer Kubiš replaced him in the Anthropoid group. Together, Kubiš and Gabčík completed the training and were ready.
Jan Kaplan found the wall after searching for quite a long time. Then he realized that it was this wall. After comparing photographs, he realized that Gabčík and Kubiš were photographed against this particular wall.
Téměř všichni parašutisté byli vyfotografováni u takové zvláštní zdi a když sám jsem měl možnost Porchester Gate navštívit, tak jsem zjistil, že parašutisté se fotografovali na 2 místech od sebe vzdálených 5 metrů.
A few years later, Jan thought that a plaque which would commemorate this building should be erected on the facade, and he managed to get the funds, and he managed to get the permission from the Westminster Council to commemorate the Operation Anthropoid. So the plaque is on the outside of the building in overlooking Bayswater Road.
So when I start work, I start to learn about the history of this brave man. He came to this building, so we're very interested. I'm very pleased. And I've been fight. We do something in the building about this man because he done fantastic job for humanity and for the country and for all of us, what we are today.
Tady na tomto památném a zároveň velice místě si člověk uvědomuje, kolik lidí obětovalo své životy, aby jsme mohli žít v míru.
One part of the Brookwood Military Cemetery is dominated by a monument. It bears the two-tailed lion, symbol of Czech statehood for which those whose names are carved into the gravestones laid down their lives. The stories of most of these Czechoslovak soldiers are usually known only to their relatives and friends. Not being anonymous in no way belittles the significance of their sacrifice, heroism, or the love of their homeland.
Paní ředitelka Bílková vlastně na základě Jana Kaplana tak pojala úžasnou myšlenku a nechala pořídit na místě obtisk této zdi.
Po 4 letech jsme se rozhodli plán přenesení kopie zdi realizovat a zahájili jsme přípravné práce. Významnou podporu a pomoc naší aktivitě poskytl radní Středočeského kraje Karel Horčička.
Jsme rádi, že se ten projekt podařil tak do konce, protože cítíme potřebu tyto památky na naše vojáky kteří bojovali na všech frontách té války za osvobození naší země, chránit a rozšiřovat.
Když jsem přemýšlela, komu tento důležitý projekt svěřit, napadl mě akademický sochař Petr Siegel. A byla jsem velmi potěšená, když mou nabídku přijal. Velký dík patří manželům Kaplanovým. Bez nich si nedokážu vůbec představit, jak bychom celý projekt v Londýně realizovali. Pomohli nám s úřady, s majiteli objektu a samozřejmě velký dík rovněž patří správci domu panu Miguelu Ferreirovi.
Separační vrstvou derivátu celulózy, tak aby ten povrch byl odseparován, aby jsme mohli potom nanášet další vrstvu formovací.
Jedna z nejdůležitějších v té projektové rovině je totiž získat jasnou představu o tom, jakou proporci ta památka při té prezentaci třeba v těch Panenských Břežinech má mít.
Peter Siegel, the only professor in the field of restoring art sculptures in the Czech Republic, has a great deal of experience and is an internationally acclaimed expert with whom Regional Museum Prague East has worked before.
Všechny prostředky se musí prostě přivízt, ty, které potřebujeme, aby jsme to mohli v nějakém časovém termínu dobře zvládnout. No a pak přistupuje taková ta běžná praxe, jako je prostě ochrana té zdi, potom je to separace, zároveň nanášení těch jednotlivých vrstev a kadlub, který vlastně celou tu věc drží a potom, až se sejme, tak se odveze do Čech.
The latex cast of the wall, made in Porchester Gate, protected by a fiberglass base, was moved over the English Channel. Its destination was Professor Siegel's studio in the Bohemian Moravian highlands. There, an exact copy of the wall was finished. Complicated and difficult work awaited Professor Siegel, as his assistants created a perfect copy. Professor Siegel and his team chose a plaster-type material reinforced by fiberglass. A duralumin frame was used to increase the strength of the cast. Thanks to the precise imprinting process in Porchester Gate, this phase of the project also went well. The wall's copy was then moved from the studio of Mr. Siegel to Paneské Březany. From here, Heydrich would complete his final journey on May 27, 1942. At the end of 1941, members of the Anthropoid Silver A and Silver B groups moved into the Protectorate to carry out their missions. After Kubiš and Gabčík spent nearly 5 months in preparation, their D-Day finally arrived. Around 10 a.m. on May 27, 1942, a convertible with 2 men leaves the gates of the Lower Chateau, a mansion in Paneské Březany. The car is driven by driver Klein. The passenger is a Deputy Reich Protector of Bohemia and Moravia, Reinhard Heydrich. At 10:30 a.m., the car makes a turn from what used to be Kirkmeyer Street and must slow down. After Gabčík's automatic rifle fails, the driver makes the fatal mistake of stopping the car instead of accelerating. Kubiš throws a specially made bomb. The bomb misses the inside of the car, but fatally wounds Heydrich. He dies a few days later.
Dnes 27. května 1942 byl v Praze spáchán atentát na zastupujícího říšského protektora SS Oberstmüllera Reinharda Heydricha. Nad celým územím protektorátu Böhmen se vyhlašuje stanné právo. Kdo pachatele přechovává, anebo jim poskytuje pomoc, anebo má vědomost o jejich osobě, anebo o jejich pobytu a neoznámí to, bude popraven s celou svou rodinou.
Both paratroopers managed to escape the crime scene, but not their tragic fates. They caught up with them and their associates on the morning of June 18th in the vault of the St. Cyril and Methodius Cathedral on Reslova Street. Opálka, Gabčík, Kubiš, Valčík, Bublik, Hrubý, Schwarz. Those are the names of the killed paratroopers who, betrayed by their friend Karl Churda, lost their lives in the fight with the Gestapo. Not even Churda would escape his fate. He was sentenced and executed after the war. The assassination achieved its goals: recognition of the Czechoslovak foreign resistance by the Allies, the erasure of the Munich Agreement signature, and thus allowing for the renewal of Czechoslovakia within its original borders. In December 2016, the memorial of the national oppression and resistance was opened in the reconstructed Upper Chateau in Banenské Przezany. Its location is a logical result of the turbulent wartime history of this small town. Shortly after the establishment of the Protectorate of Bohemia and Moravia, the Upper Chateau was occupied by Karl Hermann Frank, Secretary of State. The Lower Chateau was the residence of Reich Protector Konstantin von Neurath. He was soon replaced by the newly appointed Reinhard Heydrich and his family. Both chateaux served the leading men of Nazi Germany. The walls of the buildings were a silent witness to decisions about atrocities committed not only on the Jewish population, but also to plans to eliminate the Czech nation. In the end, both these high officials paid for their actions with their life. Heydrich was assassinated. Frank was sentenced to death by hanging after the war.
Středočeský kraj se snaží dělat maximum pro to, aby připomínal tuto událost, a já jsem velmi ráda, že se podařilo zrealizovat projekt právě ve spolupráci s Westminsterem a podařilo se nám do Panenských Břežan, kdy jsme dobudovali památník obětem fašismu. Podařilo se nám tam přenést kopii té zdi z domu, odkud vyšli naši parašutisté, kteří se aktivně zúčastnili právě akce Anthropoid.
Přenesení památné zdi z Londýna do Panenských Břežan je jednou z věcí, kterou si myslíme, že můžeme jejich památku zase trošku více uctít a oživit.
In order to install the wall, Professor Siegel and his assistant created a hanging steel structure to which the wall cast is firmly attached. Finally, a shellac layer was applied to the surface. A perfect copy of the Porchester Gate wall was finally ready for the unveiling ceremony. On December 13th, 2018, dozens of guests gathered in front of the Upper Chateau. The guests included Cardinal Duca, war veterans, the British ambassador, representatives of the Czech Armed Forces of the Central Bohemia region. They were all attending the ceremonial unveiling of the imprint of the Porchester Gate wall, against which the Czechoslovak paratroopers were photographed. Among them were, of course, Gabčík and Kubiš, who in the building on Bayswater Road received their last orders from Colonel Moravec before the airdrop into the Protectorate. After the wall was unveiled and wreaths were laid to commemorate our soldiers, everyone moved to the nearby St. Anne Chapel, where Cardinal Duca served a mass dedicated to the fallen paratroopers, as well as other known and unknown heroes.
Pro svého syna, našeho Pána Ježíše Krista, jenž svou obětí na kříži zvítězil nad světem, smrti a ďáblem. Dej nám vejít do věčného pokoje a radosti bez konce.
I think the importance was probably that it was the first time that a senior member of the Nazi leadership had been assassinated. I think probably until that point they assumed invulnerability and suddenly they realized that we could get at them. And that must have been a huge psychological blow to the leadership around Hitler.
Čin našich výsadkářů má pro nás i pro svět velký význam. Světu jsme ukázali, že si nezdáváme, že bojujeme aktivně za svoji zemi a zároveň jsme zbavili svět člověka, který měl na svědomí likvidaci Židů, což byl jeden z nejstrašnějších zločinů, který vůbec lidstvo páchalo.
Středočeský kraj tím, že je blízko Praze, byl středem odboje, tak je potřeba připomínat lidské oběti a ty oběti byly velmi nespravedlivé a byly velmi brutální.
Drahá Aničko, promiň, že ti píše tak pozdě.
These words, although gentle and kind, triggered events which resulted in the murder of 340 innocent people. This letter was intercepted by Jaroslav Pala, owner of the Slani battery factory. It was sent by worker Václav Riha, a married man who wanted to end his love affair with Anna Marushakova. She mistakenly believed that he was a resistance hero. The following day, the Gestapo discovered the truth, that Riha was a simple factory worker. However, seeking a promotion, Frank planned the horrific extermination of the entire village that Hitler subsequently approved. On the night of June 9th, the village of Lidice was closed off from the outside world. The following morning, they gathered men from the age of 15. They were then led out of Horak's farm and shot by the nearby wall. Women were transported to the Ravensbrück concentration camp. Children eligible for the so-called Aryan re-education were to be placed in Nazi families. The truth is that most children from Lidice were in fact taken to concentration camps in Lodz. Buildings were burned. Walls were torn down, taken away. The stream beds were changed, trees were cut down. Nothing was to be left as a reminder of this peaceful and picturesque village in central Bohemia.
Co se týče Lidic, tak ještě pořád jsou mezi námi pamětníci. Já jsem velmi vděčná za to, že o svých příbězích vyprávějí a vyprávějí nejenom dětem, ale i dospělým, aby nějakým způsobem společnost přivedli zpátky k historickým událostem.
Reinhard Christian Eugene Heydrich, one of the authors of the final solution to the Jewish question, the author of the plan to exterminate the Czech nation, the third man of the empire, a favorite of Hitler. Himmler, who initially discovered Heydrich and helped him pave his way to power, eventually became afraid of him. The Czech resistance was subjected to intense repressions after his appointment. He was soon nicknamed the Hangman of Prague. The resistance fighters and their sympathizers were executed for their activities based on martial law court judgments, or were sent on Heydrich's orders to the Mauthausen concentration and labor camp. The same fate awaited them there. Had Heydrich not been stopped by Operation Anthropoid, he might have surpassed all known cases of Nazi cruelty and ruthlessness. A tragic story of hundreds of thousands of people began to be written on August 8, 1938, in the small Austrian town of Mauthausen near Linz. Inmates brought from Dachau started to build a new work camp just above the local Wienergraben quarry.
Když Heydrich dělal klasifikaci koncentračních táborů, tak Mauthausen zařadil do 3. kategorie. A to kategorie nejtěžších koncentračních táborů v celé velkoněmecké říši.
In 1939, the newly constructed Gusen camp was adjoined. For the next few years, the camp complex was to become a living hell on Earth. The camp was used for the extermination by work of all irreparable enemies of the Reich. The prisoners were drawn mainly from the intelligence, communists, and anyone who refused to accept the Nazi regime. The camp was later requalified by Heydrich to a concentration labor camp. Of the more than 320,000 people imprisoned in the various camps of Mauthausen-Gusen complex during the war, an estimated 80,000 of them survived.
Když nastoupil jako zastupující říšský protektor 27. září 1941 do Prahy, tak dal příkaz, že lidé, kteří byli vráceni stanými soudy zpátky na gestapo, mají být přednostně posíláni do Mauthausenu.
The life of prisoners in Mauthausen is best characterized by an appalling statistic. While from August 1938 to autumn 1939, a prisoner survived in the camp 15 months on average. In the following period, until the summer of 1943, it was only 6 months. Shortly prior to liberation in 1945, the survival span shrunk to a mere 3 months. Due to renumbering of living prisoners by numbers of the deceased ones, the accuracy of this statistic is uncertain. The reality was probably far worse.
Od října roku 1941 do Mauthausenu z protektorátu vlastně začínají velké transporty Čechů. Jenom v tom období roku 1941-1942 z těch 20 velkých transportů, které do Mauthausenu dojeli, je 15 Čech. A období let 1941-1942 je pro české vězně v Mauthausenu to nejhorší.
Although Mauthausen was the terminal destination for hundreds of Czechs and Slovaks since 1939, after Heydrich's appointment as Reich protector, the camp became fatal for the Czechs. It played a key role in decimating the Czech resistance movement. At the same time, it was the final solution for those seen as unfit for the plan to Germanize the Czech nation.
Po atentátu na Heydricha jedním z trestů pro české vězně bylo postavit část obvodové zdi kolem koncentračního tábora, která se později začala nazývat Česká zeď.
Czech inmates were forced to build the wall after their regular day of slave work in the quarry or other workplaces. Each stone, each step, each move under heavy burden, the pain and suffering was a punishment simply for being Czech.
Během jednoho dne, 24. října 1942, je tady zavražděno 262 československých vlastenců, podporovatelů paraskupin vyslaných do protektorátu z Londýna.
Infirmary, white coats, and medical equipment. After all the hardships endured during interrogations and transports, perhaps a glimmer of hope for human treatment. Then, while loud music played from the turntable during a medical examination, each individual patient was unexpectedly, insidiously murdered by a shot to the head. The weapon was disguised as a medical device. The turntable continued to distract the victims with music. Among the various execution methods, the Germans used the gas chamber, pushing exhausted prisoners off the cliff, drowning them with icy water, with a subsequent slow freeze to death. Various vaccination experiments, electrified barbed wires, staged escape attempts that had no chance of success, hanging, drowning, shooting, endlessly exhaustive work, and of course, the pervasive hunger and disease. Some survivors described up to 62 ways of killing the prisoners within the camp. Crematorium was in full operation day and night. The flames blazing from the chimney could be seen for miles. Nazi death machine stopped at nothing. The road to fulfilling the aim of a strong and clean Germany was lined with the bodies of millions of murdered, innocent people.
Jedním z nejsilnějších příběhů ze všech těch osudů zavražděných československých občanů je Jindřiška Nováková.
Jindřiška, beautiful name for a brave girl. Her family belonged among the paratroopers' supporters. They provided shelter for the injured Kubiš right after the assassination. As Mrs. Novakova was taking care of him, Jindřiška came home from school. She sent her to collect the bicycle Kubiš left behind and to hide it.
To je kolo mého tatínka.
Jindřiška replied to Mrs. Sedlak's question about the bike. Hours before, Sedlak witnessed Kubiš leaving his bicycle at the Bacha store in Liben.
Achtung, Achtung! Pozor, pozor! Kdo zná majitele předmětů, které nyní podrobně ukážeme?
An anonymous letter from Sedlak describing the injured Kubiš set off a sequence of events resulting in yet another testimony which described a girl taking the bike.
Rozsáhlé pátrání. 1 000 000 říšských marek odměny za dopadení pachatelů atentátu na zastupujícího říšského protektora SS Obergruppenführera. Nařizuje se pátrání podle směrnic pro všeobecné pátrání.
Due to a number of coincidences, the Novak family avoided arrest for several weeks. In the end, though, they got caught in the Gestapo's investigation. Following inhuman interrogations, the family was interned in the Terezín small fortress and then sentenced to death in absentia. Jindřiška, a minor, served as an exemplary case for the Gestapo. Her fate, the fate of the child victim of Mauthausen, and her bravery face to face with the Gestapo have made her a heroine for generations to come. In 2015, Jindřiška was awarded the Angel Award for a Better World. This Children's Peace Prize was dedicated to her by children who chose Jindřiška as their role model of a brave young person. Jindřiška is one of many child heroes of her time. Her story is important, not only for children, but for all of us. It reminds us not to forget and to continue to remember the legacy of fates and places that terrifyingly shaped our past and present. Were it not for the world uniting against the horrors of war, the boom of Nazism, and the attempt to erase individual nations from maps, ordinary child laughter would not be a regular part of our lives today. The legacy of walls that store humanity's memory is left to us, the people of today who remain. Walls bound our lives, our journeys. At the same time, they force us to overcome them and to move forward. Yet they stand firm to give us support when we are at the end of our strengths.